Well, in your teens and early 20s, you think you're immortal. Maybe you're in school, your first serious relationship, maybe your first serious job, but a cancer diagnosis can change all of that. Each year, an estimated 7,300 Canadian teens and young adults are diagnosed with cancer. Here to help us understand these unique challenges of this age group is cancer survivor Mike Lang and psychologist Dr. Janine Giese-Davis. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Let's start with you, Mike. Tell us about what you were diagnosed with and when.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 25 years old, and so, yeah, I just graduated university, just gotten married, just sort of started my first job, and then boom, you know, that's sort of thrown at you right away. So, yeah.
What did that mean for you in your life at that time?
Well,
what happened?
Yeah, well, it meant, you know, like I was working actually in Washington State. My wife's from San Francisco, so we got married down in the U.S., and so she had to immigrate to Canada, but we had to basically just drop our entire lives and move back home to Calgary, actually, and move into my parents' basement, which is not really where you want to be.
No,
you know?
No, definitely not as a young couple.
Yeah, so it was a really crazy transition, you know, leaving our entire lives and all our friends and then moving basically back home and starting over, really. It was a really crazy transition,
right?
That's for sure.
And you said that it wasn't actually, I mean, obviously the cancer diagnosis and treatment was challenging, but you were saying that isn't even the most challenging part for you. You were saying it was sort of the psychosocial aspect of things.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like that time of life, you know, your friends and your activities and things that you do are really important to you. And cancer becomes a very difficult thing to talk about with your friends, you know, because no one really knows how to talk about that stuff.
Right.
But I think especially in your 20s and 30s when that's not expected, you know, it's hard to relate to people in the same way when you're diagnosed with cancer at that age.
Sure
and
is.
so.
And Janine, you're sitting here nodding your head saying yes. You've been through this as well. Tell us what happened to you.
Yes, when I was 24 years old, my husband died of a malignant brain tumor. And my son was 18 months old, so my husband was only 25 when he died. And so, yeah, finding somebody to actually talk with about what we were going through was quite challenging.
Yeah.
I had a lot more in common with 60-year-old women whose husbands were dying, right, than I did with anybody who was my age. It was a struggle.
Yeah. Now, tell me, as a researcher now, what have you found with this new survey?
Well, I'm really elated that they've come out with this major report across Canada because it's time that young adult cancers are recognized. And until now, I think in Canada, although some people have, like Mike and I, have, you know, taken it on as a study area, it's been kind of buried because, you know, the age group is 15 to 39, so the 15 to 18-year-olds are in the children's hospital, right? Yeah. And then the other folks are in the adult hospital, and so there's no sort of continuity, there's no focus, you know, there are very few young adults relative to the older population.
Right.
And so they just kind of get filtered in with all the other older adults. But even
and it's an entirely different experience for them.
Entirely different experience, right.
So what did the report suggest?
It suggests that there are some real areas of focus that should be there.
Okay.
For instance, this age group needs to be talking to their peers, right? And so perhaps health services could be better organized around, you know, making sure that this group of people find each other.
Right, exactly. They find each other. What about specific issues like fertility, for example? You're a young married couple. I'm sure kids were a conversation you were having. What does that look like for this age group, Mike?
Yeah, you know, I was sort of lucky the day that I was going to start chemotherapy. My oncologist said, hey, you know, have you thought about this yet?
Right.
And the fertility clinic's right across the road from the Tom Baker, so I ran over there and did the sperm banking right before I started chemotherapy. But, you know, it was sort of a bit of a last-minute sort of rushed thing, and I don't think that should be the way that it's done. You know, I think that everyone should have that conversation early on, no matter whether they're thinking about kids or not. You know, it's just that conversation needs to happen. And so, yeah, you know, and eventually, you know, they didn't think that I would be able to have kids, and so I set up an appointment with a fertility specialist actually in February, but then a week before that, we found out we were pregnant. So,
Oh, congratulations! What a
so
great
I'm going to
news
be
story.
dad. I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting! Congratulations to
Thanks,
you. That's
yeah.
so special. And even finances are something as well, right, Janine? That come into play.
Well, there are all kinds of things because young adults are just beginning their careers, right? So they're beginning their families, they're beginning their careers, they're finishing their education. And
Right.
so what we found in our research, Mike and I, is that we find that they have a lot more practical problems than the older adults, and those practical problems do contribute to how distressed they are, of course.
Of course.
Right? So maybe they can recover from the distress, like, you know, a normal course of, you know, being distressed and kind of getting better, but the practical problems don't really end.
No.
Right? It goes on and on.
On and on and on.
On
That's
and
right.
on.
It sets you back a little bit.
I'm
you know?
sure, right?
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause,
Well,
you
at
know.
least you have some wonderful news out of all of this. in
Yes,
the end.
yeah.
Congratulations to
Thank
you.
you.
Janine, thank you so much for coming on to share your story and this
Sure.
research. Fascinating stuff. And good luck to you and
Thank
your new
you.
family.
Yeah.
That's very
All right.
exciting. There you go, Andy. Let's get a check on the forecast.